This is Art 154, Week 6, on Material 2. We're going to work and pick up from the Material 1 where we left off as far as different settings. So what we're going to talk about today are adding maps, which are basically, if you can think of it as textures to actual materials to kind of enhance what we're doing. Just to start off quickly, we'll open up the Compact Material Editor. We already have the materials from earlier, which we can come back and work. And let's go, if I toggle X, I can go out and there's the pencil body. Now if you look, you'll see that the diffuse, or to right to a lot of these, there's little tabs, and these are for maps. So I can go to diffuse and I can click the button, and when you click it, you'll get prompted and it'll open up and it'll show you all the different types of maps that exist. Now some of these, you're not expected to know all of these. Bitmap, we'll look at that. That's how you load a picture. And then there's things that are procedurally generated, which is basically textures that are generated mathematically. There's some strengths to and some weaknesses. Cellular, checker, dent, fall off, gradient, gradient ramp, marble, noise, Perlin marble, I'm trying to think of the other ones, smoke, stucco, swirl, waves, and wood are all the different ones that you can use. The wood's horrible, so just avoid it and don't. We'll talk about some other techniques. But just to kind of show you the basics, I'm just going to grab checker and hit OK. And the instant you do that, now we're not seeing an update in the scene. The reason we're not seeing an update in the scene is if we go to realistic and we go to materials, we'll see that right now the maps aren't enabled. So if I do shaded materials with maps, all of a sudden you can see now I have the checker material showing up, and I can see it. Now it's taking a while because it's doing all the calculations of the lighting as realistic, so if you wish you can go to shaded and you'll see that I'm actually seeing the material here as well. Now as far as the mapping, you can see the tiling is basically assigning it 1 time by 1 time. If I increase the tiling, and let's do something like 5 by 5, now if we render this out, we should get a little bit more detail on the actual material. So you can see we can start to play around, get this stretch, different respond in different ways. So the mapping you have some control of, and you can do some different work with. And let's just go back to 2 by 2 and render this out again. And you can see that basically we have different spacing and different ways that it's actually assigning the material on the map. And we'll look at some of this a little later. Now the nice thing that we can do is you'll see there's check-in parameters, and you can actually change the colors. So if I want to go in and I click here, I can actually say that I want a blue checker, and you can see it automatically updates that. If I wanted to also, there's a map button to the right of these as well, so I can come into this color of the white, and I can say, you know what, I want to make that look like dent, which is a different material. And, oh, I didn't hit it. Hit OK. And, why are you not? Okay, there it is. So, okay, yeah, because now we're inside the dent. Sorry about that. So here's the material, here's the dent, and then what I did is I actually accidentally added a dent to the dent, so do a clear. And the way you drill up and down these is you have to go to this little toggle. So you can see here's the base material. If I click this, here's the map, and if I click this, there's the dent. Now you can see I can dynamically change the different settings and looks of these items. And if I go to render out and look at it again, you can see now I have this kind of material gradient. So there's a lot of power if you want to do very basic materials for this, but a lot of the stuff that we want to do, we'd like to have something with a little bit more control. Now let's go and grab the lamp glass, and we'll look at how we can utilize some of these techniques as well for this. Now the transparency right now is set, and if we want, we can come in and actually change the material. And let's grab just something like the smoke. There we go, add smoke, and hit OK. And then if we look and we render this, all of a sudden the transparency is going to be slightly different. Let me, let me do this in the translucency as well. Let's go down and do the translucency. Okay, let's come and add the map there as well. It might not have enough contrast, so I'll have to play around with it a little. Let's look at it one more time and see. There we go. Okay, so you see now there's some different detail. This doesn't have enough contrast here, which is why we're not getting it to work, but you can see we're adding different colors, and that's just with black and white. Now I can take this translucency and I can push this even further, and I can say that we have a red, and the value is going to determine how much. And then we can also do the colors as well. So if we wanted a little bit more variety in colors and some more contrast, and render that out and see what kind of update we get. So now you can see I have a little bit more variety. And just to add that basic gives you a lot of increased realism and look. So that's for translucency. Now we can do the same thing for ambient. And specular is actually kind of fun because you can use the same thing for specular as well. So let's open up, and I'm just going to use a smoke again. And let's render this out. And there's now some areas that are shiny, some that aren't. Now if you wanted to see that even better and reinforce it, we can come down and go to maps, and this lists all the channels of the material. You can see right now we have transparency, specularity, translucency. Let's just disable this one and go down, and the one that I want to look at is bump. So if we grab that one and go back to the smoke again and render this out, you're not seeing that much, but it's actually starting to create, you can see in the reflection, the illusion that there's the surface. Let me enable specularity on this Omni. I think that's why we're having some issues with this, is it's not casting. Oh, it is casting specularity. So let me see if I can move it over and up and maybe get it to show slightly, because you can see it in here. Now let's increase the bump, which is the percentage of contrast. I just increased it to 100 and rendered out. Now you see how we're starting to get this blotchy surface. So this is a little extreme, but that's another way that you can use it. So bump creates the illusion of 3D. It actually doesn't distort it. Specular changes the shininess. And then translucency, we loaded it up in that, and we also loaded up in transparency, and we could do diffuse as well. So you can get really rich textures using this. And you can see the little swatch and how it looks. Now we'll go grab the mirror, which I believe is that one. And right now we have reflectivity on this. This is a ray trace material, and we can do the same thing. And we have a gray diffuse if we hit the map for this. Now let's go and add a bitmap. So a bitmap is any picture that you find. And here, let me go find the items that we actually have. Week 6, resources, material 2, and let's just go down. It's last week's. There we go, textures. And I'm going to grab this goat cart picture and open it up. And now this mirror material has the goat cart in it. Now we're not seeing anything at this point. If we go to render this out, you can see here's the picture. And the reason is by default, I need to enable being able to see it in the preview. So the different settings, get material, put material, display, show shaded material, and viewport. There we go. Okay, so it just took a second to update, but you can toggle it on and off using this icon. And like I said, there's also the option under, now we're using shaded right now. If we're in realistic, it'll automatically do it, and you can see we get something different, but it's going to take longer to actually render out and create the look of the image. So that's just a basic, and this size is pretty good, so it lines up automatically. If for some reason I want to go back and change it, I can open it up, increase the size. I can actually crop it, so if I view the image, if I said, I don't want as much white around it, I can come in and actually crop this and close it out. And now we're kind of getting the different items and changes. So now you can see I cropped that and redid it. So basic setup for actually adding just a simple map. Now I'm going to add the frame. Right now with the frame, as you remember, we just have the different colors. And the one problem with the frame at this point is you can see it's actually a loft, and it's all one surface, and what we need to do is we need to separate into two surfaces, one that goes horizontal and one that goes vertical. There's other techniques you can use for this, but this is kind of more of a basic one that I'll recommend people start with. So I'm going to right click and do convert to edit poly, and now I basically got rid of the data. And let's change our view real quick so I can do this a little easier. We actually wanted this, all we need is this view, so I'm going to do a hide unselected, and now we can focus and get this taken care of pretty quick. So the easiest way to do this is you'll see that there's a middle line here, so I can come in and border select those and just do grow, 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 and at this point I can say detach. Or at this point you can also hold down the control key and it'll switch the selection, and then I want to shrink it one, and now we have all the faces selected. So I'll come down and I'll find detach, and when I'm prompted I'll do frame horizontal and hit OK, and now you can see the color changes. So now we have the picture frame. Let's get out of this mode, and I will actually change this to frame vertical so I know what's going on, and we got frame horizontal and frame vertical that we're working on. Now for both of these I want to assign a new material. Now let's go back to this image and we'll look here and see what we get. And actually I can do unhide all, so bring everything else back, and we got our horizontal and our vertical. Now if I go into material editor, compact, right now I have a single material that I'm using for everything, for the table, etc. So I can do a couple things. I can copy this material, and the way you do that is you simply drag it, and now you see I have two instances of table. This one I'm going to change to frame horizontal, and now I need to make sure that I also assign it to the horizontal frame. So I have that selected, and I will do, actually it's easier just to go up here and do assign to selection, and now I've changed that one. And then just to see what's going on, we'll go in and grab diffuse, grab a bitmap, and use a wood texture. So I have this pre-made teak texture. We'll see how this works. And you can see it's already kind of starting to show it. If I toggle on, you can start to see the image. Now the grain is pretty fine, so let's render and see what we actually get. And we've got to fix the mapping is off on this. So when we were doing that process, the way that the texture was assigned got changed. So, and we'll look at this a little bit more, but if you do get that error, which I have, you can just do UVW map, and it'll automatically assign the texture, and you'll see what's happening is at this point, the texture is going up. So that's not going to work. Actually, we can use that for the vertical real quickly, so we could just rename this vertical, or let's just keep this as horizontal, and we'll come back, and we're going to take this and we're going to copy this, and the new copy we're going to call vertical. Select the vertical frame and I'll highlight that, make sure we got vertical, and then material assigned to selection, and render that out. And we got the same issue that basically says it doesn't have the coordinates properly figured out. So we need to come in and add the UVW map to that as well, and project it and render it out. And now it should go up in the direction. Okay, so we got the grain going this way, and now we want the grain to actually change for the horizontal. So we're going to go in and select the map, and you can see we have different options, and let's just do a 90 and see what happens. Okay, and let's render that out and see if that works. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Okay, so I rotated in the wrong direction. So turn that off. Let's try this one and see if it works. Okay, that's not it either. And let's try W and try that one. There we go. Okay, so that took me a minute to get. But now we actually have the texture going in this direction and the texture going in that direction. So we've increased the realism of it. Now for the table surface, we can go back to that. We can add a material for that as well. And that's a ray trace, so we get a little bit of reflection. And bitmap. And okay, and we're going to add this burl oak. and toggle on, and we can see this and go to render this out, and we have this nice surface. Now it's flat at this point. If you wanted to enhance it, technically you would open that map up, that texture, and you would make it black and white. But we can come into specular level, and now we have the bitmap. Now if we scroll down and we do sample materials, you can see that we already have the map right here for where is it, the burl oak. So if we grab that and hit OK, and then an instance will make it the same, and a copy will do it different. So the instance, basically, if you change one, they'll all change. I probably want to do a copy because then I can increase and decrease the shininess as well. And the first thing I suspect is that I want to invert it. So I'll come in, invert it, and let's render it out and see what we get. Okay, we're getting a little bit more variety as far as the shine. The other place we can locate it, like I said, it's pretty subtle, is to open up the bump. Now the bump's already here, so I can drag from the specular level into bump, and I want this to be an instance because it's black and white. Toggle that on, and now that's going to give it a surface, and I'm going to crank this up even though you wouldn't want to do this, and render it out so you can start to see what influence it would have, if any. And now you're starting to get a texture that you can see here on the surface of the wood, but as far as that sheen, it's kind of gone because we have both of these off. So I can go in and turn off the specularity and turn off the bump and just leave it for the diffuse and render it out. And now it's going to look like it's wood that's kind of polished. Likewise, we could go back to the frame that we had just created and disable the reflection. So now it's flat. Do the same thing with this one, disable the reflection. And also we can knock the specularity down. So let's do 5 and 5. And then we can assign the wood texture to the bump. And we'll just do an instance at this point. And it'll add a little bit. And let's increase this so you can see it. It's going to be a little hard because the texture is so dark. And the same thing here. We got this down to 5, that down to 5. And let's see, let's grab the material and do it. Instance, OK. And do 100. And now let's render and see what the frame looks like. And now you can see it's flat and it looks more like natural wood, although this has a sheen. And then we could come in and say, you know what, I want a super shiny surface. Go up and grab the reflectivity and push this up even higher. That's probably going to be too much. It's actually a combination of the specular and the other. But now you see you got even more of a polish. So you got a lot of control that you can do back and forth with working with this and creating a different look and feel. Now the next thing I'm going to do now that we did the wood and looked at that is we're going to add a texture onto the ceiling, and we're just going to load it up to the bump map.